I'm a savage! Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get!
Something massive just cracked open in Hollywood. This isn't rumor or speculation. It's unfolding in a federal courtroom. And for once, the names aren't being whispered in shadows. They're being read aloud, under oath, in front of a jury. By day 5 of Diddy's trial, the illusion had shattered. What was once brushed off as conspiracy or fringe gossip is now being laid bare. For years, whispers circulated about a dark web of influence tying music moguls, actors, and billionaires together. Now we're beginning to see the truth, and it's more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. To the public, Diddy has always been a symbol of success. Lavish parties, designer suits, star-studded friendships. He played the role of mogul flawlessly. But as investigators dig deeper, what's surfacing is a portrait of decades of abuse, manipulation, and complicity, and he may not have acted alone. The most chilling part, so many others in Hollywood may have helped him, protected him, or simply looked the other way. During jury selection, something unexpected happened, something that sent a ripple of panic through the entertainment world. Prospective jurors weren't just being questioned about their knowledge of Diddy or the charges. Instead, they were handed a list of more than 100 names. A startling roll call of A-list celebrities and industry powerhouses. Names like Kanye West, Michael B. Jordan, Ashton Kutcher, and Steve Harvey were all on it. Officially, none of these figures are facing charges. The prosecution claimed the list was used to detect juror bias, but the lack of explanation about why these particular individuals were named only raised more questions. It's hard to see this list as coincidental. It felt more like a message that this trial isn't only about Diddy. It's about the people who stood beside him, benefited from the system he was part of, or enabled it, whether through silence, complicity, or active participation. In the days leading up to the trial, a noticeable pattern emerged. Diddy's former allies began vanishing from the public eye. Ashton Kutcher disappeared. Will Smith went quiet. Bishop T.D. Jakes abruptly stepped down. Justin Bieber's team issued a carefully worded statement. None of them stood by Diddy. At first glance, it might have seemed coincidental, but it wasn't. The timing was too precise, too deliberate. These weren't random absences. They were strategic retreats, survival tactics. Ashton Kutcher, once a fixture at Diddy's notorious white parties, started distancing himself years ago. Will Smith, often linked to Diddy's inner circle through long-standing rumors, issued a firm denial of any connection, perhaps a little too firmly. Bishop Jakes, a spiritual figure to many celebrities, cited health reasons for his departure, but the timing, just days before the trial, was suspect. And then there's Justin Bieber. Long surrounded by whispers and questions, his team's statement did just enough to acknowledge the storm while stepping out of its path. These actions weren't about loyalty. They were about self-preservation. Because in a case this massive, silence isn't neutral anymore. It speaks volumes. As if things weren't already tense, the situation took a darker turn. A key witness, a male sex worker who had allegedly provided explicit tapes to investigators, disappeared without a trace. No explanation, no updates, just gone. For those familiar with high-profile criminal cases, this vanishing act felt all too familiar. In the Tory Lanez trial, a key bodyguard also vanished days before testifying. In these circles, silence isn't always chosen. It's often forced. Behind the scenes, Diddy's defense team is reportedly scrambling. They're working overtime to reshape his image, rewrite the narrative, and downplayed the severity of the allegations. But the coordinated PR shifts, the missing witnesses, the sudden exits, it all suggests something bigger is at stake. This isn't just about protecting one man. It's about shielding an entire system, a machine that's operated in secret, built on power, silence, and intimidation, now facing unprecedented scrutiny. The stories coming out suggest that Diddy's public image hid a much darker reality. Multiple sources claim he's been using MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy, for over 2 decades. Dubbed the love drug, in Diddy's case, it reportedly became a tool that blurred limits, especially regarding control, sex, and power. What might seem like recreational use turned into a chronic, dangerous habit, one that insiders say fed a pattern of predatory behavior. In Hollywood, the fusion of drugs, fame, and unchecked power isn't new, but Diddy's case stands out because of the scale and the number of people who may have known and stayed quiet. Actor Terrence Howard once said the industry is soaked in pressure and abuse, with success often hinging on unspoken compromises. In that context, Diddy wasn't an outlier. He was part of a larger, darker norm. Even people who've spoken publicly about trauma have found themselves entangled in this world. Demi Moore, who's revealed harrowing details about being exploited and abused as a child, including being sold by her mother at 15, somehow ended up as a regular guest at Diddy's parties. She even married Ashton Kutcher, one of Diddy's close associates in the early 2000s. Kutcher wasn't just a guest, he was part of the inner circle. Multiple insiders have described him as someone who knew what was going on. Then a disturbing video resurfaced, one the public wasn't meant to see. In it, a visibly intoxicated Moore kisses a 14-year-old boy during a promotional event in the 1980s. At the time, she was a married adult. What seemed like a horrifying outlier suddenly looked like another link in a chain of toxic patterns. These aren't isolated scandals. They're interconnected, part of a larger narrative that's just beginning to unfold. And while the courtroom might be focused on Diddy, the echoes of this case are reverberating throughout the industry. Because what's coming out now isn't just about crimes. It's about a culture that allowed them to happen, and the powerful people who made sure they stayed hidden. The web of connections surrounding Diddy and his inner circle is unraveling, revealing a disturbing pattern that many are no longer willing to dismiss as coincidence. Danny Masterson, a convicted rapist and longtime friend of Ashton Kutcher, brought new scrutiny to those once seen as Hollywood's golden boys. Kutcher, along with his wife Mila Kunis, submitted character letters in Masterson's defense, igniting outrage, not just for their words, but for the deeper implications. These weren't distant friends. Kutcher had allegedly once joked about kissing Kunis when she was just 14, a remark that now feels far more unsettling. Meanwhile, Justin Bieber, once the wide-eyed teen idol, now appears distant and haunted. His relationship with Diddy has long raised concerns. He was underage when he was frequently seen partying with the mogul, and resurfaced clips show them talking lightly about staying out all night and picking up girls. On one occasion, Diddy gave Bieber a Lamborghini and let him stay in his mansion. At the time, it all seemed like star-studded mentorship. In retrospect, it reads differently, like grooming. Bieber's reps have denied he was a victim, but stopped short of denying others were. The silence speaks volumes. Then there's Steve Harvey, the clean-cut face of family values, who is now facing whispers far more sinister than anyone expected. His daughter, Lori Harvey, dated Diddy in 2019, shortly after dating Diddy's son. What many chalked up to tabloid fodder now appears darker. Rumors claim Diddy treated Lori more like a financial asset than a partner, and insiders suggest Steve may have pushed her into the relationship to stay in Diddy's good graces. Even more troubling are allegations that Diddy invited Harvey to one of his infamous parties in the late 90s and filmed what happened, allegedly using the footage as blackmail. The phrase compromising position continues to surface. If true, Harvey may have been trapped in silence for over 2 decades. Hollywood insiders insist this is how the system works. Fathers trade favors. Daughters become pawns. Silence is maintained, with shame and secrets. Jamie Foxx's medical emergency in 2023 was shrouded in mystery. Months later, Fox casually mentioned in an interview that he saw the tunnel, but instead of light, he joked about seeing the devil. Or Puffy. No one laughed. Given what's now surfacing, few could. Fox isn't the only one. Kim Porter, Diddy's ex, died suddenly in 2018 from pneumonia at just 47. Friends said she had recently claimed she had information that could destroy Diddy. Then she was gone. Others have died of similar causes. Pneumonia, heart attacks, too often, too conveniently. Even celebrity bodyguard Big Homie Stacey suggested on national television that he was poisoned with pneumonia-like symptoms after testifying against someone in the industry. At some point, it stops being coincidence. It becomes a pattern. This trial, many now believe, isn't just about Diddy. It's about the machine that protected him. Celebrities, executives, pastors, and influencers who either looked away or helped maintain the illusion. NDAs,